Hello and welcome. Today we are talking about conventional and distance education. What are the concepts and what is the structure of both these modes of education? So let us begin. See, the conventional or face-to-face mode is classroom teaching, which is basically teacher-centric. A teacher is the sole repository of whatever information has to be imparted to the students, and the skill of teacher is that of speaking, while the skill of learner is that of listening. And the transaction is in a planned and very structured manner, which is designed by the teacher. And the evaluation is also done by the teacher, and the teacher is the one who makes the knowledge check questions, or say the questions for the term and examinations and everything. So it is basically teacher-centric education. And then what is distance education? The distance education, whatever term you impart to it, is basically the educational process in distance education is learner-centric, and the teacher and learner are quasi-permanently separated. And the skill of learner is reading instead of listening as that in classroom teaching. And the skill of teacher is writing, because the instructions are imparted through self-learning material where the teacher is built in the material itself. Of course, the accreditation system is the same, because knowledge checks and other activities and how to check the performance and determine examination, this procedure remains the same even in distance mode. Now, what are the terms used for correspondence education? Because we were supposed to talk about from conventional to correspondence and correspondence to distance. So, there are several terms used for correspondence education, which was the primitive form of distance education, like home study. In Australia, it was known as home study. Independent study, as Vladimir has said, was used in very prevalently in America, North America, and then external study as was used in Australia and Southeast Asian countries. And there are several terms like continuing education. See, then it started evolving to distance education. Some called it self-instruction because it's learner-centric, and then adult learning because the children basically cannot do it. It's the matter of which is related more to adults. And the learner-centered education, as it came in the last century, when it evolved to distance education system. And then later on it went to open learning, because it is open. One can access the material from anywhere. And then open access, because anybody can access. And then self-learning, because the student is doing self-learning more independently. Flexible learning, because whenever you find a pace or a place, there is no restriction of pace or a place. Distributed learning, because the masses are there, it's at the different places, it's distributed all over. And the technology mediated learning, which is very prevalent now in this phase of open and distance education. So I hope I have clarified the variety of terms used for correspondence education and lately to open and distance education. Now, what are the leading forces for open and distance learning? So there were changing needs of population, because earlier the population was less, and select few used to go for higher education. So then the needs started changing. People started working, and they started thinking that the education should be given to them as well. So they were changing needs. And then democratization, because of democratization, everybody wanted education, and it was not a matter which was related to a few. So that was another leading force. And improved access and equity. This is very important to understand, because equity in the society and access to all was the philosophy behind open and distance education. Then the spread of ICTs, like information and communication technologies, widespread of information and communication technologies, and multiple channels and means of communications like television, radio, and internet and computer and so many things evolved, which helped a learner to access variety of material related to studies. And then the growing power of social media, which is at present in the last phase of open and latest, or say I shouldn't say it's last, but it is the latest phase of open and distance learning. You can see how media is changing the face of open and distance learning, how communication is becoming faster through, say, WhatsApp messages or through Facebook or through chatting or say video chats or say FaceTime, etc. And then see now we have to see what are the processes involved in open and distance learning philosophy. There I have outlined 6 processes out here. First is Otto Peters was the philosopher who gave this use of industrialized processes, division of labor and mass production of distribution of material. See, Peters said that distance education is nothing but, you say, starting like an entrepreneur, like an industry, right from the development of the material to the delivery of the material and to the evaluation. There is a set of experts who are involved in each and every activity, and changing role of teacher as a manager. Teacher is more of a manager than a repository of everything. Now the teacher is to manage, how the coursework is being written, or say the self-instructional material is being produced, and who has to be involved in writing the courseware, and etc. And use of mixed media in courseware and two-way communication. Two-way communication is very important, which was missing in correspondence education and even to some extent in distance education, and which has found way in open and distance learning. Tutor and academic counselor supported counseling sessions for face-to-face communication and peer interaction. This is the important feature which is available in open and distance learning, and especially in India, where the learner support centers are there, and the students love to visit these counseling sessions and go to the learner support centers. Another feature is, or say the part of the process is, relaxed entry and exit requirements. Because say anytime you can go in to study or say enroll, and anytime you can come out. So the relaxed entry and exit requirements are the processes in open and distance learning. And then self-learning printed material, as I said earlier, which substitutes the class teacher, because now the teacher is built in the self-instructional material. So this is what are the processes of ODL, and these are very, very important processes. Now I have to tell you you have to learn what are you must have identified by now. I don't have to say that I have to teach, but you must have identified what is the difference between correspondence, distance and open education. Correspondence education, as you must have noticed, was single content and print based education system. It was a system in which started from postal tuitions, that the tuitions were sent and to the learner, and the learner used to study. And I have heard about the horse carriages which used to take say in Europe, where it was called external study. Then some people used to write the instructions, and it would go to the far away place where the learner was there, and then they used to do it. And that was a kind of single mode system, print based system. And one-way postal communication was a feature of correspondence system. And the focus was on examination, because it was like, how to check the competency of the learner. That was examination oriented system. But it was part of the university. And distance education, as I have told you very, very elaborately in the last slide, was propelled by the democratization based needs. Like it became learner oriented, and learners used to get it at their pace, at their own place, and the syllabus design became special, because objectives and then part based on the objectives, and then checking the progress, and then quality was a little bit embedded in it. And then self-learning material also changed in distance education. Use of multimedia was, distinguished it from correspondence education. Then what is open education? Open education is innovation-based emergence over distance education. See, the instructional design is different. There are learning theories which are important in designing the instructional material. Like you can see it right now. I'm imparting this lesson through a video. So this itself is a change in the instructional design. New ways of delivery came into. And then another feature was choice-based course selection. Learner became very independent and learner chooses what he or she has to study. So this is the flexibility given which distinguishes it from distance education. So, and the entry is also flexible. Whenever one wants to enroll, one can enroll, can leave it in the middle, can rejoin, because the target population is such that it is their need. So the entry and exit has become flexible. And all learners have to study at their own pace and at their own place. This is another important feature which distinguishes it from distance education. So now probably you must have understood what is the difference between correspondence system, distance mode of system, and open learning, which is more of a philosophy than any system or a mode. Thank you very much, and we'll continue again through some podcasts and through other videos. Thank you so much.